I think that's everyone. All right. Well, thanks for coming out, guys. Welcome to Being One with Your Pack, Pack Fitting with Isaac and I. My name's Joe. That's Isaac. Today we're going to talk about how you load your pack, why you load your pack the way you do, how to fit a pack properly to yourself, issues you might encounter on the trail with pains or fit issues, and some other little nuances that kind of come with the topic of today. So first off, we're going to go with how we load your pack. So I conveniently have a backpack here, and we're going to load it. So we want to be able to have our heaviest weight. You want to effectively have that weight come down into your hips. You don't want it to be too much on your shoulders. You don't want it to be too far down, which would cause it to sag a little more. So what we're going to do is you're going to put things that are lighter kind of on the bottom. It kind of acts as like a little shock buffer, if you will, a little bit of a dampening, kind of suppression of bouncing around. And also, it's usually something that you're not going to use that much throughout the day. So usually we'll put spare clothes or day pack, or we'll do a sleeping bag down bottom. That's what we're going to do with this guy here.
Kind of follow along. We've got a rough outline of what we want this pack to look like when it's fully loaded down here. Like Joe was saying, lightweight, midweight stuff like the sleeping bag with spare clothes on the bottom, your heavier weight stuff nice and close to the spine so that it carries on top of your hips and doesn't really move with you rather than you moving against your pack. And your real lightweight stuff up high and on the outside edge.
Okay, now we got that sleeping bag in there. We just did put the sleeping bag in. Another thing I did while I was doing that was I loosened up my compression straps. I'm going to compress those later to get it close fitting to me, closest they can to me on the pack. So I wanted to loosen those up. Next we're going to put, we're going to do our food. Now this is going to be probably one of the more denser items that you're going to have. And the way you're going to want to put this is right here in the back. You want to have it close to you so that it transfers down into the hips effectively.
So grouping in with the food is also your cook kit stuff, so your stove, cook pots, big heavy metal things like that. They're going to be in that same bag, just like Joe said, pulling it in close to your spine so that it carries more comfortably. If you were to put it on the outside edge of the pack, every time you step, every time that pack swings, you feel it, and it adds to your discomfort. The closer it is to your spine, the easier it is for you to carry it longer.
And adding on to that, furthermore, you want it close to you, but you also want to make sure that from side to side you're evenly distributed too. If you have it loaded on one side a little more than the other, then you're going to be listing and feeling more exhausted on that side. Next thing we can put in is be our clothes. Those can go kind of towards the top, and another thing I like to do with items that I might be using that I want to grab quickly, but still want to pack things efficiently, is sometimes I'll line the outside of my food bag with my rain jacket and rain pants, etc., puffy jacket, and then that way I don't have any sharp projectiles, like a densely packed item poking out of my pack, and that ensures that I protect my pack and everything is easily accessible, because I usually pack it so I can see a little piece of each item kind of coming up out of the pack as well.
I'll also do the same thing with my tent. I usually store my tent internally on my pack rather than on the outside underneath the brain or strapped to the bottom. I'll usually store the tent body and the tent fly separately and use them to fill up extra space, just like Joe was talking about out front there. It's nice and light, but it's easy to protect the pack and make it nice and evenly loaded.
All right. So that's looking pretty good. We're almost to the top now. So the next kind of items you can put up to the top here are things you're going to probably want to access throughout the day. Your essential items, compass, map, all your first aid kit. That stuff can go up here, or in your accessory pockets if you have accessory pockets, and that'll kind of ensure that you have the things you need right away for the day, for your day hiking, and then release needed items, like I said earlier, down below. And then we can go ahead and cinch this guy up. Now that we're cinched up, we're going to be able to compress this load. Make sure everything is a cohesive piece. Things, you can have on the outside again could be those essential items. If you're not using a water bladder, making sure you have your water bottles on each side. I usually like to carry two, about the same size, so that way I have that horizontal load distribution as well.
If you're only carrying one, but you're using a liquid fuel stove, great way to do that same thing. Water bottle one side, put your gas on the other side, you're nice and evened out.
Exactly. Another point as far as packing shelters, I am a hammock camper by nature when I'm by myself, and when I go with my wife to reduce our weight, we use our trekking poles to put up a tarp shelter. So what we, kind of same philosophy, just kind of thinking out of the box, and it's going to be very personal based on your load. This is kind of a very, simplified way of packing because this is just a generic list of items. But my little wife carries the shelter down below on her pack, and I carry our tandem sleeping bag. So we're doing the same thing, but distributing it just a little bit differently between people. Also, when I have my hammock, my tarp usually goes on an outside, like shove-it pocket or on my brain, so I can quickly put it up and get out of the rain. And my hammock's usually outside somewhere, usually sometimes in a side pocket, just because sometimes I like to That's
A couple key things to avoid. Almost all the packs you guys are going to be using are going to have what's called a braid, this floating top compartment here. It's really easy to look at that and chuck everything you forgot to put in the main body of the pack up top here. And it's really easy to all of a sudden have 6 pounds hanging out at the top of your pack. It's a great way to make it carry really, really poorly and put a lot of strain on your neck and shoulders, especially when you're a few miles into the hike. Definitely try and keep in mind, keep that top part of the pack as light as you can. All your heaviest gear, like we said earlier, center of the pack right by your side.
So as far as now as we're on weight distribution as well, there's a note to be said between men and women. So if we look at a side-by-side, here's the same exact pack in a women's model. Men tend to carry a little bit more weight on their shoulders, so you're going to probably have your weight a little bit higher, so mid-high, whereas women, you carry a lot more weight on your hips naturally. That's going to be like middle-low, closer down towards your hips. That's going to ensure that, based on, which gender you are, that feels the most comfortable as well. Not going in, we can keep this guy up here, I guess.
Yeah.
We'll go into different styles of backpacks real quick. So we actually got this guy. So, go back in time, after external frames kind of went away, you had your traditional styled internal frame. It has usually a hoop or a loop, metal frame or 2 bars going down inside, sometimes a single bar. It's usually fixed inside the pack. You can have an adjustability usually by either a Velcro loop like the pack we just had, or a hooking closure right here which you can adjust up and down based on your torso size. Also, your load lifters are usually affixed right on top of the frame as well. And that's your most basic of style of suspensions. A little bit of mesh sometimes it could just be a little bit of foam. Call it primitive, if you will, with the technology that we have this day and age. Next, you have what we would call a trampoline style suspension. As you can see, there is a piece of mesh that is suspended tautly in the pack, and there's usually some sort of springed aluminum or steel that gives you great ventilation. It's great for humid climates. Also, if you're prone to overheating, that can also help cool you down. Even if you're in winter climates, I'm a pretty sweaty guy, so I like having a lot of ventilation. Otherwise, I oversweat, and then all my gear's wet, and I'm kind of in a tough situation down the road. Pretty similar packing-wise. You have your sleeping bag compartment or your quick accessible pocket. Sometimes I'll put my hammock down here in the smaller pack as well. Same kind of loading, except you have to take into account you have that space where your pack is furthest away from you. Now that would typically be where you would load your dense items, generally speaking. But since it's furthest away, that's pulling away from you. So it kind of goes back, again, when we talk about men versus women, you can either go above or below that kind of arc to make sure that you're transferring that load effectively to your hips.
It definitely pays to keep in mind what type of frame you're working with, looking at your pack and seeing how it's shaped and how it's shaped in relation to your spine so that you know where you want to carry your heaviest stuff to make it a little bit easier on you.
A couple of other packs we can touch on really quick as well. Here's another style of trampoline back panel. It's a little more enclosed. It still has great ventilation. It also has ventilation in the hip belt and the shoulder straps built in. The lighter your load goes, the less important the suspension is. This one just has a foam sheet. Not much of a suspension, but just enough to keep the pack rigid. Kind of helps keep it more erect while you're packing it, if anything, and give you a little bit of ventilation in that mesh panel as well. I'd say another thing really quick to kind of keep in consideration with your pack, kind of like he was talking about with loading it on the top, make sure that, say you have a 50 or 60 liter pack, it's kind of a lighter weight pack, you want to make sure you take in note what that kind of top capacity is for that pack. If you're going to get a pack that's, say it hauls 40 pounds max, great, but you're hauling 45, 48, 50 pounds routinely for those first 2 days, you might need to rethink what kind of pack you're using for those kind of trips, or what stuff you're carrying with you, more for your own comfort's sake and for the pack's performance. So I think now we'll segue into fit.
Does anyone have any questions about packing the inside of the pack before we talk about fitting the outside of the pack to you? Move on.
Cool. Jinx. So who wants to be the test dummy, or me, you going to pick someone? What do you think? Okay, I think we'll use you as a dummy. So you want to try that guy out there? All right. Okay. So what we're going to do is he's going to loosely put this pack on, see where it's fitting as is. Isaac here has a 19.5 roundabout torso length. That puts him in between a medium and a large. Just while he's putting that on, another thing to catch on, if you don't know what your torso length is, it is measured from the top of your hip bone, which is called the iliac crest, to that lump in the back of your neck, your C7 vertebrae. So from top of his hip bones to the back of his spine, Isaac is 19.5 inches, ergo, he's a medium. Not bad. So this is looking pretty good.
Is that where you want the hip belt, right on top of that?
Roundabouts, yeah. So
Top of that?
what Joe was talking about earlier was the iliac crest. On me, top of my hip bone is right here. I want this hip belt centered on that hip bone. So I want it wrapping half over top, half underneath, right around. That as weight's coming down on it, it catches on that shelf. It doesn't slide. I don't want it all the way on top because it'll shift the pack too high and the weight will start sloshing around and it'll start having to fight against it. If I put it too low, there's nothing for it to catch on and it'll just slide down and none of the weight will transfer.
So this pack right off the shelf is actually fitting in pretty good. There's a little bit of space up here. You can see I can slide my hand in. That would be something that we would adjust down. Ideally with a pack, your general fit is going to be, you want to have a continual wrap passing 2 to 3 inches past the peak of his shoulder and connecting to the pack. You want this load lifter from the peak of his shoulder to be roughly a 45-degree angle. If you had a line straight from his top of his shoulder to the pack, and a plumb line going straight down his body, that should roughly be a 45-degree angle right there. Another thing to note for fit, you want to have roughly anywhere from like 3 to 6 inches between each end of the hip belt. This is 8 inches for me. Looks like it's just a little wide, but it's still on his waist. It's wrapping around. You want to make sure it wraps around your hip bones all the way. Otherwise, if you're only getting half of it, you're only getting half of the load distributed on your hips. Another thing, this is a personal preference where you want the sternum strap. I like it, to be right across that sternum. I don't like it to be too high, too low. So when we're fitting a pack, so say we were starting from scratch, Isaac didn't have this on. And we'll go over what we do to fit a pack, and then we'll go over the process of putting a pack on. Real quick, I'm going to show you how a pack will not fit. A proper fit. A very uncomfortable fit. Any questions so far? Guys having a good time? Yeah? Cool. Alrighty. So this pack would appear that it's fitting well, but it's actually not. First thing right off the bat, we start from the bottom. He barely has any adjustment on this hip belt, and this is pretty loose on him. So if he were to put weight, this is just going to slide down. It's not even going to catch his hips. Yeah.
Also got much too far of a wrap on the shoulder blades here, shoulder straps here. You don't really want to see it coming all the way back down behind me like that. It's much better to get it to terminate up in here just below the armpit like Joe was mentioning earlier. And I can just feel here, there's a ton of room back behind my shoulder blades as well.
Yep.
Once it's loaded up, the more room you have back there, the further this pack is going to carry back and away from you. Start pulling on the front of your shoulders and transferring the weight here instead of onto your hip bones.
And once you have that sternum strap adjusted, and you have that kind of weight from personal experience, I can tell you it feels like you're breaking something. Your chest will have an immense amount of pain right here, so it's very uncomfortable. Another thing you could have saw when you had it on, that angle on the load lifters was really aggressive. It was way above a 45. It was more closer to a 50 to 60 degree angle.
So you can't make that pack fit you, that's too big, or what's?
Yeah, so we were talking about how there's a little bit of adjustment to the back panels of these. This pack is actually completely bottomed out on its fit scale. I can make this pack longer and pull the whole back panel up, but I can't make it any shorter. And the biggest fit issue was that this harness up here wasn't fitting me. And so there was so much room, it would transfer the weight up top instead of down low. Added bonus was the hip belt was so loose that it wouldn't have caught on my hip shelf anyway, and it would have just slid down and not transferred any weight. Most of these packs are going to come in at least 3 different sizes, each one with 3 or 4 inches of adjustability. So you can always find a pack that fits you, but not any pack that's going to fit you.
As we talk about sizing about packs, Dorter has a pretty good job of having a kind of one-size-fits-all style. The kind of great thing about these is, you can really get a pretty good fit for a wide range of torso sizes. That being said, a jack of all trades is a master of none. You're really not going to get the perfect fit as far as a complete sized pack, small, medium, large, extra small as well. Let's see. How to put on a pack. Yeah, let's go with that. So, before we put this on, he's going to adjust that torso so it fits him a little bit better. And then what we're going to do is we're going to show you how you're going to put the pack on. A quick note while he's adjusting, you want to make sure that when you take on a pack or you're about to put it back on, you start from ground zero. Loosen your shoulder straps, loosen your load lifters, your sternum strap, and your hip belt. It may seem really convenient to have it already kind of pre-sized and ready to go, but you're going to be slightly off when you're fitting that pack. It's going to maybe be too tight on the load lifters. It could be way too tight on the hip belt. Your shoulder straps could be really cranked down, so you're not going to have the best fit.
There's a lot of little things that affect how your pack's going to fit you on any given day. How much weight in it, how low it's carrying, how many layers you have on. That's going to affect how long your torso is essentially. And if you start out with your pack straps set as they were the last time you used it, just a little thing, like these shoulder straps being a little bit too tight, pulls that hip belt a little too high, and you're never going to get it just right once you're out on the trail. So, like Joe said, before I put it on, everything gets loosened up just a little bit, so I've got a little bit of play everywhere. putting a pack on, first thing you're going to adjust, no matter how big or small the pack is, no matter how much weight you've got in there, even with it riding all the way down here, I'm not going to pull these shoulder straps first. You're going to find your hip belts. You're going to get that hip belt nice and centered on them. And crank it nice and tight. Both Joe and I like to over-tighten this hip belt at first, just so that it doesn't slide up or down on us when we're adjusting everything else. We can come back and loosen it up a little bit for comfort later. Once we have that nice and tight, come up to the bottom of the shoulder straps, take these down and back, just until we feel that wrap come the whole way around the shoulders. From the back of the waist, all the way to under the arm. There, the load lifters. Very important to pull these until they're taut, but not until they're tight. You just want a little bit of tension on these. If you yank on them until they don't go anymore, what you're essentially doing is using that frame as a seesaw and pulling the hip belt away from you, the smaller your back. And it actually does more harm than good. You want it just tight enough so that everything's vertical and running parallel to your spine, not until you're actually loading that frame with any tension. Right now, this is pretty good. Ideally, shoulder straps would still be a little bit shorter on me, but it's pretty close, and for a pack in this meter range, it'd be perfectly comfortable up to its maximum weight area.
Yeah.
I'm just on putting it on.
Nope, that's looking pretty good. Another thing I like to do, just to kind of get that sensation when I'm kind of first trying out a pack, is I'll also over-tighten my shoulder straps just a little bit, and then as I get everything fitted right, I'll take it and I'll just put my thumb on top of the webbing. I'll actually go this side here. I'll lift it up with one finger and I'll roll with my thumb as I have it on my back. And what that'll do is as I loosen those just ever so slightly, that little micro adjust, I can feel it shift down onto my hips, and I can feel that it's engaging it properly. Just kind of like a little fail-safe I do. Another thing is, it's going to take some practice. Usually it takes me, even still to this day, 3/4 of a mile down the trail to make sure it's riding right. Because like you said, clothing, maybe you ate too much salty foods, you're bloated, you can't get it, fit right, so you got to do a little bit of tinkering as you're going down the trail. A couple small things we can hit on. Do you want to talk about your trekking poles?
Yeah. So one of the most common problems people have with things. Just going to adjust this real quick so you can see. So one of the most common problems people have with fitting their packs is bringing back here behind the shoulder blade. I touched on it earlier. Basically what happens is you hike further and further into the day, you get more and more hunched over, fighting into the shoulder straps to try and get rid of that grip. So you can feel the pack leaning back and away from you. Sometimes you can fix that by adjusting the height of the torso straps or changing packs. Another really good way to help it is actually with trekking poles. Do any of you guys hike with trekking poles now? So, one of the great things they do is pull your whole torso up and back and keep you in that position as you hike. If I'm starting out like this with my poles, when I hit mile 10, I'm still going to be exactly like this. For me personally, if I was hiking without poles by mile 10, I'd have my thumbs poking through my shoulder straps, and I'd be hiking like this, staring at the ground. It'd be pretty miserable. I can go a lot faster, a lot farther, and a lot more comfortably, keeping myself upright, just something like this.
Another thing to add with trekking poles is you're basically making yourself a four-legged animal instead of a two-legged human. So you're distributing that weight, a little bit more evenly through four limbs instead of all on your hips, 50-50 each leg. So it'll be a little less fatigued Also, my trail name Slips, so those things have caught me in a lot of falls, and I haven't fallen. So.
They can also help with your weight distribution inside the pack. You know, if you're using a system like Joe does with his tarp, and you're using these to tie your tarp, you just basically took 2 tent poles out of your pack, put in your hand, so you're helping yourself hike better, and you're lightening the load on your back. It makes a big difference.
Another thing I think I forgot to mention, when we're packing the pack real quick, there's kind of 2 camps on how to make sure things stay dry. You have the waterproof stuff sack kind of mentality, and you also have a trash compactor bag. So those really burly bags you get for your leaves and sticks when you're breaking your yard. That's what Isaac and I both use. It's super cheap. I think I found mine. I asked Taco Bell if I could have a bag once, and they gave it to me. That's what I used for like 6 years. And it's super burly. It's waterproof. You can put everything you need to in there, cinch it down, just roll it down, and everything. I've fallen in over waterfalls and stayed completely dry. That being said, I do kind of do a couple triple waterproofing things. I still do use the stuff sack to do my sleep system and my sleeping clothes, just to make sure that they are dry. I've been to camp many times wet and fallen asleep shivering naked because I didn't have dry clothes.
I do the same thing for the same reasons. You know, my sleeping bag's always in a waterproof stuff sack of its own, just in case, because there's really nothing worse than sleeping in a wet sleeping bag.
Another thing, you can totally, if you do have everything you need waterproof, you could totally forego a pack cover if you want to, if you're totally sure that everything you want dry is going to be dry. I personally still use one. Number one, it's blaze orange, so when it's hunting season and I'm in a state game range, a place that is hunting, very visible. Also, as your packs aren't waterproof 100%. You know, they have a pretty good water resistance to them, but as you hike, if you hike all day in the rain, you'll feel like your pack's getting heavier, and it's because it is. It's slowly soaking in that water. So I've reduced, by using a pack cover, I've reduced that futuristic pound or 2 that I could have been carrying and keeping it off my neck. I think we covered all the major points, Isaac. Does anybody have any questions? Does anybody have any fit issues they would like to conquer today? Oh, you measure your torso? Yeah. Go ahead and take off your flannel, Aki, so people can get a good idea of what we're doing here. Do you have a preference on which one you like to use?
Oscar.
Me too. All right. You're just roommates, so.
Alright. We were talking about iliac crests earlier. Go ahead and find your hip bone for me. What we're going to do, we're going to get this centered right on his hip bone. He's going to get it nice and tight, just like it was an actual cat belt. What's your color? Okay. Good rule of thumb. Close by or a little below the belly button, you're probably in the right ballpark. If you're above the belly button, you're probably doing it wrong, or you just have a very, very short torso. What we're going to do now is going to have Aki take your chin all the way to your chest and find a C7 vertebrae right about there. Go ahead and look up. Perfect. Got a 19-inch torso, Aki. You can pop that off. So that puts him right in a medium. Depending on the type of pack and how stiff the frame is, he could wear a large if it was more comfortable for him. He wouldn't wear a large in something really big and burly like that Aether, where there's no flexibility to the frame and it would just be sticking up high above the back of his head. But in something like this Talon here on the edge, Joe was showing you had that lightweight foam back panel earlier, you could definitely get away with a large, something like that.
And maybe you're trying to help a family member or a friend and you can't get into the store. You can definitely do this at home if you needed to. Maybe you're on the trail or you're close to leaving and your friend's like, I don't know if this fits me. Well, you can do it yourself. Quick way to do it is you do the same thing to find that hip belt or hip bone. And then what you would do is when you find that, so here's my hip bone. I put 2 pieces of tape right here on my shirt. Then I would feel there for their C7, which is that lump in the back of their neck. Then I'd put 2 pieces of tape right here. Then using a flexible piece of measuring tape like you would for sewing, you'd measure from both points in between both pieces of tape and you'd effectively get the same thing you get with our pack fitting devices.
do that with a belt. Wrap a belt right on top of your iliac crest and measure the center of the belt along your spine up to your C7.
So I got a good opportunity. So I see a couple of you guys have packs here. Would you like to try to? Do you have any questions with your packs? Do you think you got fitted in properly, or what kind of issues do you think you're having? No? Oh, we got another party. Hello. Sweet. So what do you say? You wanna break it up and people can hop on packs or talk about solutions?
I don't think we've got anything else on our list.
Yeah.
Solving anyone else's specific fit issues.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say yeah. What's up?
Since there's a couple females here, is the chest strap supposed to be like tight or just
The
a
sternum
little
strap,
taut?
the only thing the sternum strap is actually there for is to keep your shoulder straps from separating and sliding off the outer edges of your shoulders over the course of the day. Pretty much all of them are going to have this little elastic built in with that shock. It's kind of a personal preference thing. I pull mine just like I do with the load lifters until it's taut, but not until it's tight. You know, it's there to take up some stress if the shoulder straps shift, but not to keep them in place.
Right. So sometimes if I have a pretty good load, or if I know I'm feeling it on my shoulders, you can almost feel like your shoulders are compressing together. I'll have it loose originally, and then I will just hold that till it becomes comfortable enough to have my shoulders in a natural position. I don't like to have it too cranked because then it's compressing my chest.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of finding that balance where it feels the most natural. That's
And
what I
you think
strive for.
like that height is where you usually have it?
That's where I usually have it. I've got a good sized chest myself. So I don't like it to be too far down because then I'm kind of, I've really got to,
Kind of fighting it.
yeah, I'm kind of fighting it, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe if I wanted to hold my girls in the place, I could do that in the trail, but I like to have it a little higher, a little more space, usually at the point where it kind of naturally curves away. Is where it usually fits on me. Just enough tension where you feel like you're not pressed this way, and not too much that you feel like you're getting squeezed together in front.
Great question though. Anyone
Yeah.
else have any other questions?
How do you figure out where you're going to put things in, you know, even just the little things in the straps? I mean, is it trial and error?
A lot of it really is trial
Yeah,
and
a lot
error.
of it's trial and error, and it really depends on what I'm carrying that day. But I always keep those core principles in mind. Usually, so say this was a pack that didn't have a panel loading, and it was just a straight pack. I pack the same way in both packs. Light stuff that I might use, I might not use. Say it's a day hike. Maybe it's fair weather. Maybe I'll put my rain jacket down there. Maybe it's somewhat cold, but as I hike, I probably won't need my puppy. I might put it down there. Usually, the reason you have your bladder against your back is because if you have a 3-liter bladder, that's 6.6 pounds that you're carrying. So that's why that's right there, so that can be transferred down to the hips as well. And then all the other stuff kind of just finds its way depending on my load. Usually, my emergency stuff's quick to access, maybe my phone or camera, and usually what I want to eat that day is usually pretty quick to access. Everything else just kind of finds its place as I start packing it. I try to not only keep in mind where my weight's supposed to be, but I don't like it to look kind of like this, where it looks like there's bulges everywhere. That's an indication that you have maybe some more mass in different places and it's not evenly spaced.
A great kind of rule of thumb, especially with larger packs, once it's completely full, you've got the compression straps all dialed in. You take that pack and sit it up, just kind of let it go. It's going to tell you which way it's overloaded and which way it's falling. You know, if you have it all loaded up and pretty tight, it's going to stand up on its own pretty well. This pack, since it's full of square rectangles that we jammed in there, it's a little back heavy.
Yeah.
If we had an actual sleeping bag down here, it'd have a little bit more room and it'd actually feel pretty decent and be able to stand up pretty well on its own. That's usually what I do, especially with my 50 and 60 liter packs, to see if I'm in the right ballpark. Just let it stand up on its own on a hardwood floor. See which way it goes.
Is there a rule of thumb things hanging on the outside with straps versus inside?
Kind of, as little weight as possible as far away from you. It's the same thing as putting the heavy stuff by your spine. I pretty much always have my camp mug on the outside of my pack just because I've got a convenient strap for it there, and it's how I've been doing it for years.
You have your what? I'm sorry.
My camp mug.
Okay.
Personally, I usually camp with a tent, and when I started, I always had it going underneath the brain here, so sitting crossways over top of my shoulders. I had to stop doing that because it was too much weight too high up on the pack, and it was really, really hurting my back, my upper back. I ended up moving it around. I now pack the tent poles on one side, the tent fly on the bottom in between the sleeping bag and my cookware, and I use the tent body to fill up extra room around the top of the bag.
Another thing is maybe you're carrying a foam pad that's light, it's pretty bulky, it would take up a lot of space. You can always, if the pack has it, you have those straps down here. Also, if you have something that's just kind of just outright weird to pack, maybe like a camera tripod, say you're going to maybe use it more often than have it in the pack, that'd be something I might put on the outside. And like you said, I have the one tent I do use has one pole, so those poles go on the outside, and then usually my tent stakes I usually pack on the outside when I'm camping because then I can access that just like my target and put it up all the way. Anything else? All right.
Does anyone who brought their packs want to get fitted? Make sure it's in the right ballpark.
Yeah. Sweet. Come aboard and we'll do that. Thanks for coming out, guys. As we're fitting and stuff, if you haven't signed up already, we do have a pack giveaway tonight. Deuter Acolyte 50 plus 10 pack. It's a great size for a weekend and maybe some light multi-day hikes. It's just over here at our third table. I'm just going to bring it over. Not too many use, the chance is high.
It is an awesome
How do
pack.
you know what size, leader size?
Usually
How
they'll
do you
say
choose that?
on the pack the number size.
How to choose which
But how do
leader size
you
you need.
choose? I mean,
A
what if
lot
you-
of it depends on what gear you have,
Right.
and where you're going and how often your restocks are.
Sure.
So most people hiking the Appalachian Trail these days are doing it in a 50-liter pack because they get restocked every couple of days and they don't need to carry, a week's worth of food at a time anymore. Me personally, most of the time when I'm going out, I'm using a 30-liter pack because most of the time I'm going out for overnights. I really enjoy going as far as I can in one day, sleeping and then coming back.
A great way to figure out what pack you need. If you're like, say you're starting from new, you're just starting to get your gear around. One thing you can do is, go by the advice of a shop, find a pack for roughly the length of trip and how much food you're carrying, like Isaac was saying, or you can bring all the gear you're going to be carrying to the store with us, pack it up, and then you can see, okay, this is kind of working out for me. I usually have anywhere from 3 to 4 packs in my arsenal. I have a 60-liter pack, and I'm using that for usually my 60 to 70 liters for like my week-long excursions. My 50-liter pack's kind of my Swiss Army kind of pack. I can use that for overnights, weekends, 4-day trips. And then I have like a 20-liter pack, which is mostly my day pack.
A great thing to keep in mind, especially with the packs we sell, they all have tons of compression straps. So you can take a
That's
50-liter
what I
pack
think.
like this.
Yeah, can you take a larger pack or if you have a larger liter pack, there's the tendency to put more stuff in.
Absolutely.
That's one of the bear traps you can fall into.
It takes a lot of composure, I guess you call it, not to completely focus up when you're going out for an overnight, but you can put 30 liters worth of stuff in it and cinch it down to the point that it carries just fine.
Another thing, if you're going out for just a couple of days but you have a larger liter pack, one thing that I do, because I'm using that trash compactor bag style waterproofing, I'll just let instead of compressing down my bag with my hands, I'll let my sleeping bag loft up more in the pack and fill up more of that bottom space. Therefore, I'm only filling up that top bit every little bit.
Another really great thing too on top of that, cinch this up before you start packing it so that you're working with smaller space right off the bat. Instead of putting 20 liters in there and going, oh, I've got all this much room left, what am I going to do? Just cinch this down so that you're only working with 10 liters down at the bottom of the pack. And by the time you've got 20 liters in, you're already up to here. Makes it a little bit easier to visualize that way.
Anything else? These have been great questions.
What is the most common item that people take that they don't need?
Common item that they take that they
Items.
don't need. Wow.
Too many clothes
That's
would
so
be a
many
good one.
clothes.
yeah, too many extra pairs of shirts. A lot of other things are really personal preference. Like sometimes sometimes it depends on the trip. You know.
Sure.
I think the biggest things are the little stuff that people just chuck in last minute because they've got a little bit of extra room. All those little things add up a lot. Turn into 5 pounds before you know it. Which if you're using a 20, 30 liter pack, 5 pounds is a ton of weight.
I had an old girlfriend who had a really great weight system down for her pack, but she always loved a 3-pound chair. So that really weighed it down a lot. You know, if you can sacrifice maybe just a piece of foam, or something a little bit lighter like a Crazy Creek or something, that's one thing you can get away with. I would say like unnecessarily carrying big, bulky luxury items. I always try to balance my luxury in the woods between what I'm not going to be miserable with, and at both spectrums, because I can be miserable if I don't have enough things to make me feel kind of satisfied. I can be miserable if I carry way too much stuff. When you carry way too much stuff, not only is it more heavy, but it's also a lot more stuff you have to keep track of. A lot more stuff that you have to try to think, I got to try to find a time to use this.
I think something I'm certainly guilty of too is carrying a shelter that's much larger than I actually need. I'm often out there alone carrying a 2-person tent with a 33-foot footprint, which is way more room than I need and probably an extra 1.5 pounds of weight in there. When I could just be taking my hammock and a tarp, packing it down to half the size and saving weight. But I like the extra room, so I carry all that weight, even though I don't technically need it.
Right.
Question.
Yeah.
So, what are the indicators of a pack that's not packed well, like pain-wise, or
Pretty much anywhere.
so
Yeah,
it's not like
you
if
can
you have
pack it.
shoulder pain, it's because you're top loading.
If
or,
you've got shoulder pain, it's usually because you're top loading and you're having to fight into your shoulder straps rather than let it sit vertically on your hips.
but pain can be sort of by person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of
I
stuff
used
that
to
can
be a
go
pretty
wrong.
big culprit of cramming my sleeping bag. Even though I didn't use a stuff sack, I'd cram it down all the way I could, and my food right on top of it. It was sitting really low for me personally. It didn't matter how much I cranked that hip belt. It always, the back of the pack, because it's not a very structured pack that I use, would always find a way to seep down below my hips, and then I would have more shoulder pressure that way. It wasn't necessarily because it was too high. It was just because I was ineffectively putting way too much weight low, and the pack didn't have a very large hip belt on it in general, and then it would slide down.
And when you misload a pack, it's almost always going to send the weight to your shoulders instead of your hips, and that's pretty much what always goes wrong. So it's almost always something up top that's hurting you. Is there a specific pain you have in mind?
Yeah, you should feel, as far as fit as you're hiking, you should feel overall pretty balanced. You shouldn't feel too much, because you're not going to notice too much on your hips, because every day your body carries most of this weight on its hips. But you shouldn't feel a lot of shoulder pain. That's going to be probably your telltale sign that it's running properly.
You can get some stuff bugging you down around your hips if you don't have that hip belt wrapped right. If you wrap it too far forward, you're definitely going to irritate yourself, but it's more of a like rubbing rash type of pain than an actual musculature thing.
And on that note, another thing I've kind of noticed, and I say this every time I fit a pack, I compare it to shoe shopping. A lot of people will read a backpacker magazine review or some other blog review, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is the Cadillac of packs. I need to have this. Maybe. It might fit you, it might not. I always recommend at least 2 or 3 different models, at least 2 different brands, maybe different suspension styles, to see what really caters to your body the best. I have huge lug handles. I could probably float down a river with this tube I have. The hip belt on the Aura and the Atmos does not work. Because it kind of self-closes on itself, it's a very tight fitting. It always ends up either riding up or below my hips for me. I can never get it dialed in right. And there we go, pain in the shoulders and top of it.
You were, like, what are the things on the pack that do adjust? pack, but as the day goes on, you know, what little adjustment, I mean, you talked about the straps, but and what were you adjusting at the back there? You were beating
Oh,
down.
so
I'm not
when
sure
we
they
measured
know how
Aki
a pack
earlier
is.
and we measured his torso length, almost all of these packs are going to have some sort of adjustment back here so that we can adjust the length between the hip belt to the top of the shoulders to accommodate a wider range. Some of them will work like this, where you basically just got a Velcro closure back here that once we break it, we can slide the whole system up and down. Other ones, specifically the Atmos and Aura, will have webbing runners back here, and we can slide the whole assembly and get a huge range of adjustment.
And onto our other brand we carry, Deuter, you can actually, they have their very quick suspension system. You can actually break this, pull it down, and as long as you have 4 loops attached, you can move it up and down the pack. That's how this kind of pack would fit.
The other adjustments some packs will have is what's called fit on the fly. Same sort of Velcro closure, but it's down here on the hip belt, so you can adjust just where the signal hits.
As far as when you're hiking on the trail, sometimes, you know, I'll tighten or loosen my sternum strap based on what I'm feeling. Another thing is, you know, we have a lot of up and downs, a lot of hills in this area. You know, to a degree, because you don't want to overcrank or, you know, have your load lifters loosen too much. But as you're going up a hill, you can tighten them a little bit more, and that'll push your center of gravity towards the mountain or hill. If you're going down, you can loosen them ever so slightly, and that'll bring you back. So you feel more upright. You're not, you know, hunched over all the time.
I think my most common adjustment is just these shoulder straps here. You know, starting hiking in the morning with the jacket on. By noon, I'm hiking in a t-shirt. I'm going to tweak that a little bit, get a little bit better of a wrap as the day goes on.
Yeah. My backpack that I use does not have any back panel at all. It's pretty minimal. So sometimes to get a little bit of heat expanded or escaped out of my back, I'll actually loosen it and just stand there and let it air me out a little bit. And then tighten it again. That's probably my biggest thing.
The sternum strap, do they go up and down?
Yeah, so
Yes.
they're both clamped onto kind of a rail. Basically this black bar here.
Okay.
And you can just take this, slide it. You get about 6 inches of adjustability on pretty much every pack on the market, from the smallest ones up to the biggest ones. They're all going to have some sort of tweak there.
Another thing to add, not only packing your bag, but as far as the difference between a men's and women's bag, obviously the torsos are going to be a little smaller on a women's bag. They're going to start at a lower range and peak at a little bit of a lower range than the actual biggest men's bag. But another thing, your hip belt's going to be differently shaped. Here. Your hip belt's going to be a little bit differently shaped. You can see this one actually contours in a little bit. That's to really grab the hips of a woman. You also have, Deuter has their regular packs, and they call their women's packs SL for slim line. So this shoulder strap is a lot thinner in diameter than this one. You can see there's also a more dramatic S-shape. S-shaped straps are usually what they usually put on a women's pack, and most men's you'll see either a slight S or just what they call a J strap, which is just a straight strap, and that's to, you know, accommodate for your chest. And that's probably your biggest differences between packs. So if you,
So a woman really should be buying one specifically that's a woman's.
yeah, or at least have that in their mind when they're looking at the packs. The nice thing about Osprey, as we're talking about kind of women's packs, Osprey packs are designed, their whole design team is a women's team. So they are catered, I mean, they're not catered to, but they really give a good fit. That's why I think most women actually, I've noticed, really like an Osprey fit. Let's see if there's anything else I can think of. I think we may have covered all the bases.
Anyone else have anything before we fit some packs?
Body, like.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's just like shoes, you gotta get used to them. It's not like you're gonna be used to the pack right out of the gate. You know, it can fit you perfectly. By mile 5, that'll change. You'll have to get used to it a little bit.
And just like how in the ski industry you'll have custom molded liners. A really great example is the Aether Pack by Osprey. Even though they updated it to have more of a anti-gravity suspension like their Atmos series, we can still take out this hip belt, put it in the Osprey oven, and mold it to your hip belts to accelerate the fit. So you really can, instead of walking out and saying, okay, I feel like 6 or 7 sweat trips down and really get this thing steamed to my body, I can come out and be, probably anywhere from 80 to 100% ready to rock with it. And that kind of a break-in period is going to be, dependent again on the style of pack. A bigger pack with more padding, of course, that's going to take time to really mold to you. Something that's light, this is going to have most likely a mesh hip belt. That's going to contour to you right away, just like the shoulder strap. So that fit's going to be a pretty immediate response. Any other questions? Thinking about it?
I'm thinking about my day pack, and I mean, it doesn't. Is it handy to have the pockets on the hip strap as well?
I love them because I just put all my snacks in there. I can actually get at them without changing the fit of my pack at all.
I'm thinking about how often or little you take that pack on or off, and like my day pack doesn't have anything here other than a strap, and that also.
I use a 12-liter pack for my day pack pretty much for everything, mountain biking, hiking, running, whatever it is. And it's got 2 pockets here, and it's probably the pockets I fill up first every single time I take it out. If I'm biking, I throw a multi-tool and a couple of gummies in there.
And that's a great way to instantly get some, energy back by putting a goo or some sort of like energy bar there. You already maybe have your water and a hydration bladder, so as you're hiking, you can decrease the amount of time you have to stop.
Yeah.
Logistically, it actually makes it a little bit better because you can hike a little bit farther, be on time a little sooner, so that you can get to camp and hang or chill on your pad, whatever you want to do.
And also, I'm thinking of my day pack. It has, the netting here for the bottles, either not deep enough or I set it down when I take it off, and then the bottles have come out and
Some water bottle pockets are just designed better than others. I also find a lot of times Nalgene's won't work super well in my mesh ones. If I use a sport bottle like a Camelback, it often works better for me.
Yeah, they're like perfect example. Osprey usually has a dual entry side pocket, which is awesome because you can actually reach behind you, put it in and out while it's on your back. So if you're not I'm a water bottle drinker myself. I can slam that back in there while I'm hiking, and then up from the top, I put my tent pole or what have you up from the top, so I can use it in different ways. A lot of times too, with depending on the pack, you can reroute the compression strap to the outside or the inside, so you have either full access to the pocket with like no hindrance from the compression strap. Like here, they put it on the inside, so you have full access to the actual pocket. But on this side, say you were lashing a tripod, again, that kind of methodology, or a small pad, you can put it in there, press this down over top, then everything's really secure.
Or if you have a water bottle that's slipping out, jam it in the compression strap.
Yeah.
I've got a 35-liter pack that I pretty much always run the compression straps over top of my water bottles just for that reason.
I think it's fit time. So if you guys brought any packs, you guys can step forward. We can do some fitting, making sure they're fitting right. And if you haven't signed up for the pack raffle, make sure you do so before you leave tonight. Get fitted up. I'll take anybody over here.
Definitely want to know whether I'm interested in this baby or